Okay, we're in skill Access 2.9, creating a table in design view. I kind of got ahead of myself with the lesson. I showed you this already. This is where I like to work when creating a table in design view. So I went over this, so I want to take this time in this video to talk a little bit more about table structure and how you should go about creating your table. I mentioned it before in one of the first lessons, but tables, you don't want to have any redundant data in your tables. So you keep everything precise. What I've done here is I've created a whole set of tables. I have 6 tables, and this doesn't come anywhere near the amount of tables you would need to have a really fully functional database for a school like NCU. But what I have here is I have a classes table, I have grades, rooms, students, teachers, and even terms. What we can do is I'll go back to the data sheet view. So here's my instructor table or my teachers table. There's only one record in there, and that's me. You can look at a students table. So here's John Doe. Now if John Doe is taking my class, I wouldn't have one record that had John Doe's name and birth date and gender and address along with my name and start date and address and all that. I wouldn't have that. I can link the two together, and in fact if we have this, what we have here is the case where John Doe is taking a class, and I can look at classes. Here we have CIS 124. In the class I have a term ID field. I should have put ID in there. I have a teacher ID and I have a room ID. So there's all kinds of information about a room. There's information about a teacher. There's information about the specific terms. The only thing that's very specific to the class is the department and the course number, really the section we can have in there too. So I have this class with ID 1. It says term 1. If I go to my terms table, you see term 1 is fall session 1, and here's start date, end date, some year dates, some stuff about the term. We'll go back to my class. I have a teacher ID, so who's the teacher teaching this class? Teacher 1, or 4 it should be actually. So that's me. I'll go back over to classes here. Change that to a 4. Now you won't have to manually do this. You'll be able to create forms, or forms will already be created, just so you can kind of understand the concepts. And then I even have a room ID. So I go to rooms. Here room 1 is Pomayevich, first floor, room number 101. It's got an equipment field in there. It tells me what's available to it. So again, back to the classes. This CIS is in term 1, which we saw was fall 2011. Teacher is me, Andrew Beckham. The room is Pomayevich 101. And then we have grades. Grades have a student ID, a class ID, and a grade. So the student is 1. We go back to the students table. You can see the student is John Doe. Here's all the information for him. The class ID is 1. We go to the classes table. You can see the ID 1 is CIS 124. So this grades table only has 3 fields, but it contains so much data in there because it tells us who the student is, and what the class they're taking is, and what grade they got. And when we go to the class, we can see who the instructor is, and we can see what room it's in. So that's kind of how the relational database goes. I just want to define a few terms here. We'll look at them a little bit more. But the ID is your primary key. We'll look at that in the next lesson. And all these IDs that we reference here, the student ID 1, is really referencing the primary key on the student's table. So John Doe's primary key is 1. When we say student ID and we put a 1 there, it's referencing the student table, and the ID is 1. You'll tell Access how to set up those relationships. And this, in this grades table, this student ID 1 is called a foreign key because it points to another table, an ID in another table. That's just kind of an overview of the relational database concept and sort of how that all plays out, the way you can organize your data, that you're not repeating data across your tables, and it's very concise and not redundant in that. Your code word for this lesson is GIVE, G-I-V-E.